It's Monday. It's time for Worst of the Week, and there were several candidates from both DC and Marvel, but we had to check out Fire and Ice, number one. Welcome to Smallville. Joanne Starr, welcome to DC Comics. I think this is her first published comic book that she's written. Natasha Bustos on art here, and there's a reason we're covering this with Doc.
There really is. My God, was this abysmal. If it is your first published work, I'm sorry you embarrassed yourself.
Not first published work, first published DC work. I think she's written 2 or 3 comics before this.
Okay, well, if they're anything like this, you've previously embarrassed yourself, and now you're just embarrassing yourself on a larger stage.
Absolutely. This comic book is really one of the bright shining beacons of why Dawn of DC has no chance of success. If you go into Green Lantern, if you go into Green Arrow, what's going on with Superman, it feels like Dawn of DC is a return to the heart of the characters. Let's show people why these are the best characters in comic books and move on from there, and we'll see where it goes. This has Dawn of DC on the banner, but this really isn't even Fire and Ice in execution. It doesn't feel like the characters. It certainly isn't celebrating. They come off as a couple of bimbos that are in junior college or something like that. There's nothing witty about them. There's nothing sharp. There certainly really isn't anything heroic about them. And it feels like you're taking a piss on the characters and the universe rather than celebrating it. I don't know what Dawn of DC is. I don't even know what's supposed to be.
I don't know what it is either, because if it was a return to more traditional, like Rebirth 2.0 or 3.0, you're missing the mark. If we're going to do the quintessential versions of everything, and maybe this is the quintessential Fire and Ice, and they are an embarrassment to DC. We're creating this book so that it justifies putting them out of their misery and these characters never appearing ever again in any instance.
I've never seen the characters portrayed like this. But let's get into the story, because there's a lot to unpack here, Doc. We got to get going on this. The first thing that's noticeable is the art by Natasha Bustos. Just like on the first page, it's a little bit confusing because it looks like it's a YA graphic novel, but it's Dawn of DC, so it's supposed to be an in-continuity mainline DC title, and the art isn't bad if this was produced by Scholastic or something like that. But as far as DC standard, it's not terrible. It's too cartoony, which I guess sort of fits the story that they're telling here, but it doesn't really look good.
This belongs in a Scholastic catalog and not in a local comic shop. This book has no home. It feels like it's a relic of the DCU initiative, where they tried to make a bunch of slice of life shit with these characters. It felt like it was supposed to be part of that, but it has sat on a shelf for the past, 10, 12 years, and now they've just decided to publish it. But at the same time, I know that's not true, because this is done by newer creators and it references all of the stuff going on in Dawn of DCU. It doesn't seem to establish what its purpose is. It doesn't seem to figure out where it belongs in the universe. And it doesn't seem to give us an idea of why this book even needs to exist.
Well, getting into that, this really is the comic book for nobody. And I think that's one of the things that's really plagued from Marvel and DC. They want to do a thing for an audience that they don't have, but they publish it, under Dawn of DC or something that's really should be aimed at an older audience that's typically men that still read superhero comic books. So it's Dawn of DC. It's in mainline continuity. As you mentioned, on multiple occasions, it actually references, go see Power Girl Special Number 1, go see Action Comics for an explanation of where this storyline is playing out of. But it looks like a YA graphic novel because of the art. The storyline itself is very slice of life, and it's very YA. It's got all these hijinks. You got a robot that wants to feed everybody pie, and 2 best friends that they love each other, but they don't understand why they can't get along. And it's the biggest thing that's ever happened to these women in the history of the world, as if they're 12 years old again, instead of actually fully fleshed out adult human beings who can have arguments but can come to an agreement or an understanding of things. So it feels like it's trapped in between, but there's also tons of cursing in this comic book, so it's clearly not for kids either. And you just come away and you're like, okay, this is the quintessential comic book that was literally created for no one to enjoy.
It was created for the author and the author alone and maybe some of her friends. Women writers in superhero comics don't seem to work because they just want to write quirky humor that is both simultaneously designed for 35-year-old women and 11-year-old girls in this completely arrested development sort of way. That's what you got here. It's for single cat lady wine aunts that never grew emotionally past 10, but are all the worst things of what the man baby is, but just for women. I refuse to accept that there's that many women out there or people that appreciate that.
No, I don't think the ones that actually want to spend money on comic books. It's like a fundamental misunderstanding of the audience itself. So the premise of the book itself, I guess, in Power Girl Special number 1, Fire absolutely obliterates Guy. She doesn't kill him like happened in the Human Target because this is in continuity, and she kicks his ass, and Superman has to save Guy, and he banishes Fire and Ice to Smallville to live with his mom because that makes a whole lot of sense, but they don't want to live with his mom, so they go out there and they rent a salon, or what used to be a salon, to set up their headquarters so they can make their name and maybe redeem themselves. This is absolutely YA graphic novel tripe. There's no good story to be told here because they buy the salon to live there and run some type of operation out of. And this lady that used to work at the salon goes up and says, hey, I used to do nails and hair and everything. You should hire me. And they're like, well, this isn't a salon anymore. We actually don't want to do hair. And she's like, they used to do hair here. And then she's like, okay, I guess you're hired. We're going to actually make a hair salon. These are adults. You don't have to go along with what the lady on the street tells you to do, right?
This is where I come back to. None of the people writing comics seem to understand a fucking thing about the entire world at this point. If I rented a warehouse, do I have to start a warehouse for car parts business? Or am I allowed to, I don't know, store appliances there?
If you're so wacky, you have to make it a warehouse, Doc, because it feeds into the hijinks.
Yeah, and then I have to, oh my God, the people that run the place don't know anything about running the place. This is what I feel like I want to punch myself in the face reading
And it's like 4 pages, Doc. It's not an insignificant amount of real estate that's dedicated to this absolutely asinine, pointless part of the story.
Well, yeah, but then it apparently later decides that, Martha Kent decides that it's also going to be the book club. A lot of women just have a book club in a salon that's not a salon. And by the way, who has all the licenses? You can't just decide because there's hair dryers in there, it's suddenly a salon again. You need actually in America, you need a bunch of different licenses to operate or to work at a salon. And none of that was ever even remotely covered. That's probably just me being, I don't know, having a goddamn clue how the world works, which is more.
Well, and when you read something bad and you're really annoyed, you really start picking out everything fucking wrong with the story.
Oh, yeah. And everything here is bad because everything here, it already is driving me insane.
Not a great thing. I did like the part where Joanna Star, I think that's her name, remembered, oh, yes, this is a superhero comic book. So Fire goes on to WayneTube or something, whatever funny name they made for YouTube in the DC universe in this comic book, and puts out like a challenge to any villains to come to Smallville and fight her one-on-one. And then King Shark shows up, and then we get almost a page of action. We actually don't get action. It's insinuated that it's about to happen, but on the same page, Superman shows up. So she almost made this stupid slice of life YA comic book have some action that would make sense for a shared DC superhero universe, Dawn of DC. So she almost committed to what the comic book was supposed to be about.
Almost, but that would have required actually doing
setting
something.
Up stakes, knowing power levels, being able to choreograph a fight scene, and having a future plan for the story.
Exactly. And it would have required not going with the lowest common denominator cliche girl writer in comics these days of a man coming to be terrible and teach them that they're bad. They have to go with the LOL so random Disney humor of King Shark talking about his teeth and how he has 2 rows of teeth. So he's totally going to win. Superman showing up and them calling him Super Dad. Look, I'm already going to predict exactly how this fucking story ends. They are already awesome. And now Superman, by the end of this, has to understand how awesome they already were and how he was wrong in assuming that they were incompetent, even though they're doing nothing but incompetent things. That's the story.
There's also some atomic wedgie jokes because Superman picks up King Shark by his underwear, like King Shark's not dangerous.
And like he could.
Because you can't take anything in this comic book seriously. Not even the guy that's about to eat people.
Yeah, got to completely undermine the stakes that you're trying to create before it even happens. You wonder why none of us take you seriously, lady.
Well, I don't think anyone knows who you're here, but I think the problem is people aren't going to take DC Comics seriously. That's the real fallout. Nobody knows who Joanne Starr is, but they know who Fire and Ice are. They know what Dawn of DC is. And to some people, that might mean something, that maybe it's time to come back and buy DC Comics now that Night Terrors is over. And when they get stuff like this, they're not going to come back to like, oh, I guess Dawn of DC was just more crap. And then, like the ending of it, obviously they're mad. Ice takes Superman's side. Fire takes not Superman's side. She's really mad that she didn't back her. But the lady that works at the salon, or that forced them to open up a salon, caught it all on tape and uploaded it to YouTube. Shockingly, I didn't see this one coming. Fire has realized she can become a social media phenomenon. I'm just so tired of people coming from outside of comic books, and the only thing they can do is like, wow, if I was a superhero, I would become a social media influencer. That's what every superhero should be doing. So every time that, it's always about fucking TikTok and YouTube and becoming a viral sensation. It's like, come on, there's something deeper here. It's good versus evil, right versus wrong. These are morality tales, and you're dumbing it down past the lowest common denominator. You're dumbing it down to yourself. And that's what really makes me mad when these idiots come over and want to be comic book writers.
They think they're treading some sort of new ground all the time. I'm sitting there going, bitch, if you ever read a fucking Archie comic, because that's what this felt like. It felt like Archie with superheroes below the lowest common denominator. This isn't even like good tropes or like advanced tropiness. I'm going to make the internet stuff happen with my telephone because people know who I am from punching people.
I feel like I'm on the fence on this one. I don't want to commit to it, Doc, but are you going to recommend people read Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville #1 by Joanne Starr, her debut at DC Comics, at least on a title? I think she might have written a short story somewhere.
If you are a 12 to 14-year-old girl that is thinking about getting into comics, buy this and do absolutely nothing that is ever done on any of these pages. Every single page here is a what not to do as a female comic writer.
I'm going to say, Doc, like I said, I was on the fence, but you kind of, I think you pushed me over. I'm going to abstain from recommending this comic book. In fact, I would give it the art is fine for what it is, but it's not good enough to be a mainline DC comic. I'll give it a 1.5 out of 5. How's that?
I think you still overvalue it. I think I'm going to go with a 0.75 out of 5 because I can't quite justify being at a half, and 1 is too high.
Yeah, this wasn't very good, and I imagine a lot of people knew that you were going to be reviewing this because it was that bad.
It was pretty fucking obvious.
Dawn of DC has been a roller coaster ride ever since they announced it and all the events and what the titles were, and then when they started coming out, you're like, I feel like I know what this is. I don't know what this is. And it's been, I don't know, like I said, it's been up and down and all around. I made a video talking about how I was optimistic and cynical at the same time. And comic books like Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville #1 are really confirming that there might be some good stuff. But my goodness, there's some really bad stuff still. And it might just poison the entire well. There's also a link in the video description.